Okay, so we're going to do the first part of Chapter 5 DQ. So the order of activities for this particular chapter is Part 1 DQ, and then the Chapter 5 close reading, and then the Chapter 5 Part 2 DQ, which won't be assigned until next week. So, Chapter 5 Part 1, our first question happens at the very beginning of the chapter. What's happened? That's all you need to do, and use a quote for what's happened at the beginning of Chapter 5. So let's get there. Gotta go down to page 42. Ooh, too far. Okay. So, yeah. What's that first word? I hate that it cuts off these first words. I've got my book handy here. One. That's supposed to say one. One end of the great barn was piled high with new hay, and over the pile hung the 4-talon Jackson fork suspended from its pulley. The hay came down like a mountain slope to the other end of the barn, and there was a level place as yet unfilled with the new crop. At the sides, the feeding racks were visible, and between the slats the heads of horses could be seen. So we're in the horse barn. It was Sunday afternoon, so it's only the second full day they've been there. So the book starts on a Friday, and I really just want you to understand the timeline so you can see how quickly everything went downhill. Yes, it's about to go quite a deep slope downhill. So Lenny and George are sleeping by the river on a Friday. They come into the ranch on a Saturday, and now it's only Sunday. So they've only been there 2 days. It was Sunday afternoon. The resting horses nibbled the remaining wisps of hay, and they stamped their feet, and they bit the wood of the mangers and rattled the halter chains. The afternoon sun sliced in through the cracks of the barn walls and lay in the bright lines on the hay. There was buzz of flies in the air, the lazy afternoon humming. From outside came the clang of horseshoes on the playing peg and the shouts of men playing, encouraging, jeering. But in the barn it was quiet and humming and lazy and warm. So the mood at the beginning of the chapter is relatively calm. It seems nice. Nice day. People are just going about their business, playing horseshoes outside. It's Sunday, so they have the day off. No one's working. Lenny was in the barn. And Lenny sat in the hay beside a packing case under a manger in the end of the barn that had not been filled with hay. Lenny sat in the hay and looked at a little dead puppy that lay in front of him. Lenny looked at it for a long time, and then he put out his huge hand and stroked it clear from one end to the other. And Lenny said softly to the puppy, "Why do you gotta get killed? You ain't so little as mice. I didn't bounce you that hard." He bent the pup's head up and looked in its face, and he said to it, "Now maybe George ain't gonna let me tend no rabbits if he finds out you got killed." He scooped a little hollow and laid the puppy in it and covered it over with hay, out of sight. But he continued to stare at the mound he had made. He said, "This ain't no bad thing like I gotta go hide in the brush. Oh no, this ain't. I'll tell George I found it dead." He unburied the puppy and inspected it, and he stroked it from ears to tail. He went on sorrowfully, "Oh, but he'll know. George always knows. He'll say, 'You done it. Don't try putting nothing over on me.' And he'll say, 'Now, just for that, you don't get to tend no rabbits.'" Suddenly, his anger arose. "God damn you," he cried. "Why do you gotta go get killed? You ain't so little as mice." He picked up the pup and hurled it from him. He turned his back on it. He sat bent over his knees and he whispered, "Now I won't get to tend the rabbits. Now he won't let me." He rocked himself back and forth in his sorrow. So pause for a second. Number one, what has happened at the very beginning of the chapter, and use a quote. So anything from starting with only Lenny was in the barn to the end of that page, any of that is fair game. Poor Lenny. And then Curly's wife. Okay. From outside came the clang of horseshoes on the iron stake, and then a little chorus of cries. Lenny got up and brought the puppy back and laid it on the hay and sat down. He stroked the pup again. "You wasn't big enough," he said. "They told me you wasn't, and I didn't know you'd get killed so easy." He worked his fingers on the pup's limp ear. "Maybe George won't care," he said. "This here goddamn little son of a bitch wasn't nothing to George." Curly's wife came around the end of the last stall. She came very quietly, so that Lenny didn't see her. She wore her bright cotton dress and the mules with the red ostrich feathers. Her face was made up, and the little sausage curls were all in place. She was quite near to him before Lenny looked up and saw her. In a panic, he shoveled hay over the puppy with his fingers, and he looked sullenly up at her. She said, "What you got there, sonny boy?" Lenny glared at her. "George says I ain't have nothing to do with you. Talk to you or nothing." She laughed. Oh, goodness gracious. What page did I just end up on? 37? This gosh darn Chromebook. Come on, scroll down, top of this page. Okay, what you got there, sonny boy? George says I'm not to talk to you. She laughed. "George giving you orders about everything?" Lenny looked down at the hay. "Says I can't tend no rabbits if I talk to you or anything." She said quietly, "Oh, he's scared Curly'll get mad. Well, Curly got his arm in a sling, and if Curly gets tough, you can break his other hand. You didn't put nothing over on me about getting a caught in no machine." But Lenny was not to be drawn. "No, sir, I ain't going to talk to you or nothing." She knelt in the hay beside him. "Listen," she said. "All the guys got a horseshoe tournament going on. It's only about 4:00. None of them guys is going to leave that tournament. Why can't I talk to you? I never get to talk to nobody. I get awful lonely." So tenement, she means tournament, like a tournament. Okay, they have a horseshoe tournament. So they're all playing to see who's the best at horseshoes, and they're going to be playing for hours. So never fear, Lenny, you can talk to me. Lenny said, "Well, I ain't supposed to talk to you or nothing." "But I get lonely," she said. "You can talk to people, but I can't talk to nobody but Curly. LT gets mad. How do you like to not talk to anybody?" Lenny said, "Well, I ain't supposed to. George's scared I'll get in trouble." She changed the subject. "What you got covered up there?" So this brings us to number 2, which is Curly's wife discovers Lenny in the barn. How does she react to what he has done? Does this surprise you? Why or why not? So here comes her reaction. "What you got covered up there?" Then all of Lenny's woe came back to him. "Just my pup," he said sadly. "Just my little pup." And he swept the hay from on top of it. "Why, he's dead," she cried. "Well, he was so little," said Lenny. "I was just playing with him, and he made like he was going to bite me, and I made like I was going to smack him, and I done it, and then he was dead." So, little puppy, remember, it's like a newborn puppy. Eyes are still closed. Of course, it was going to make like it was going to bite him. He was probably petting it too hard, or it was hungry, and it, was going to bite him, so he smacked it. And you can't smack a newborn like that. He probably snapped its neck and killed it. She consoled him. "Oh, don't you worry none. He was just a mutt. You can get another one easy. The whole country is full of mutts." "Well, it ain't that so much," Lenny explained miserably. "George ain't gonna let me tend no rabbits now." "Well, why don't he?" "Well, he said if I done any more bad things, he ain't gonna let me tend the rabbits." She moved closer to him, and she spoke soothingly. "Don't you worry about talking to me. Listen to the guys yell out there. They got $4 betting that tournament. None of them ain't gonna leave till it's over." "Well, if George sees me talking to you, he'll give me hell," Lenny said cautiously. "He told me so." So, that is her reaction to what he's done. So how does she react? Rather calmly. It says that she uses a consoling tone and a soothing tone. And she says, "Oh, you can get another puppy. It was just a mutt." Does her reaction surprise you? Why or why not? And explain. All right, now we're going to learn a little bit more about Curly's wife's past. And then you just need to kind of bullet the key points of her past and use a quote about what her whole deal is. All right, let's see. So George gonna give me hell. I can't talk to you, blah, blah, blah. Her face grew angry. "Well, what's the matter with me?" she cried. "Ain't I got a right to talk to nobody? What do they think I am anyways? You're a nice guy. I don't know why I can't talk to you. I ain't doing no harm to you." "Well, George says you'll get me in a mess." "Aw, nuts," she said. "What kind of harm am I doing to you? Seems like they ain't got none of them cares how I gotta live. I tell you, I ain't used to living like this." Here we go. "I could have made something of myself," she said darkly. "Maybe I will yet." And then her words tumbled out in a passion of communication, as though she hurried before her listener could be taken away. Here's her background. "I lived right in Salinas," she said. "Come there when I was a kid. Well, a show come through, and I met one of the actors. He says I could go with that show, but my old lady wouldn't let me. She says because I was only 15, but the guy says I coulda. If I'd went, I wouldn't be living like this, you bet." So what it means is a show came through. Think of like a play, okay? They're like a traveling acting group, and they would put on little performances from town to town to make some money. And she met one of the actors who, whether he was preying on her or actually thought she had a career, who knows? I kind of tend to believe that he was preying on her. He said, "You could come with us and be in our shows. You could act with us." But her old lady, that's her mother said no, she couldn't go because she was only 15 at the time. This wasn't that long ago. Like, she's probably only 16 or 17 now, and she's married Curly. But Curly's also not that old. He's maybe his early 20s, okay? And remember, this is the 1920s, and 30s, so it's not a huge deal that she's so young and getting married. Okay, so mother says, "No, you can't go." She's obviously mad. Lenny stroked the pup back and forth. "We're going to have a little place and rabbits," he explained. So obviously Lenny's not listening. Lenny's not absorbing anything she's saying because, one, because of his mental handicap, he can't. And two, he's distraught over this puppy and the fact that George might not let him take care of the rabbits, and that's all he can focus on. She went on with her story quickly before she could be interrupted. "Another time, I met a guy, and he was in the pictures. Went out to the Riverside Dance Palace with him. He says he was going to put me in the movies. Says I was a natural. Soon as he got back to Hollywood, he was going to write to me about it." She looked closely at Lenny to see whether she was impressing him. "I never got that letter," she said. "I always thought my old lady stole it. Well, I wasn't going to stay no place where I couldn't get nowhere and make something of myself. Anyway, and where they stole our letters. Sorry, I'm going to start that part over because I'm just getting tongue-tied. I always thought my old lady stole it. Well, I wasn't going to stay no place where I couldn't get nowhere and make something of myself. And where they stole your letters. I asked her if she stole it too, and she says no. So I married Curly. Met him out in the Riverside Dance Palace that same night." She demanded, "Are you listening?" "Me? Well, sure." "Well, I ain't told this to nobody before. Maybe I oughtn't to. I don't like Curly. He ain't a nice fella." And because she had confided in him, she moved closer to Lenny and sat beside him. "Could have been in the movies and had nice clothes. All them nice clothes like they wear. And I could have sat in them big hotels and had pictures took of me. When they had them previews, I could have went to them and spoke in the radio, and it would have cost me a cent because I was in the picture. And all them nice clothes like they wear. Because this guy says I was a natural. She looked up at Lenny, and she made a small, grand gesture with her arm and had to show that she could act. The fingers trailed after her leading wrist, and her little finger stuck out grandly from the rest. Lenny sighed deeply. From outside came the clang of a horseshoe on metal, and then the chorus of cheers. Somebody made a ringer, said Curly's wife. So, her background is as follows. You should bullet these points, and then one of them needs to be a quote. So she's about 15 years old. She's maybe 16 by now. But when she was 15 years old, she met a play actor, a stage actor, they're called. And he said that she could come with him and, become a stage actor as well. But her mother said no. And a little while later, we don't know how much later, but a little while later, she met a man who was an actor in the movies, right? In the pictures, that means like the moving pictures. So in the movies, she met a movie actor who said pretty much the same thing. Come with me and I'll put you in the movies. And she went out with him, and he said that he's going to go back to Hollywood and he's going to write her a letter about when to come and be with him. She said she never got the letter. She suspected that her mother was stealing her letters. And so no proof, but she just decided, I'm not going to stay here anymore with you. And she moved out. And she went to the Riverside Dance Palace again. It's a dance hall. And met Curly. And it seems like she married him right away. Like maybe even that night. And that's how she came to be on the ranch. Do I believe that either of those men were serious about her? No. I think that she's young and naive. Honestly, when I say naive, I mean a bit stupid. Like she doesn't have much common sense. And they were trying to take advantage of her. So she tells all that to Lenny. And then she also says that Curly's not nice, which I think implies that he's abusive, whether it's physically or mentally or emotionally. We know that Curly is not the most confident and stable of people. We know that he's very jealous of all the other men on the ranch, so he's probably abusive. Now the light was lifting as the sun went down, and the sun streaks climbed up the wall and fell over the feeding racks and over the heads of the horses. Lenny said, maybe if I took this pup out and throwed him away, George would never know, and then I could tend the rabbits without no trouble. Curly's wife said angrily, don't you think of nothing but rabbits? Well, we're going to have a little place, Lenny explained patiently. We're going to have a house and a garden and a place for alfalfa, and then alfalfa's for the rabbits, and I take a sack and get it full of alfalfa, and then I take it to the rabbits. She asked, what makes you so nuts about rabbits? Lenny had to think carefully before he could come to a conclusion. He moved cautiously toward her until he was right against her. Well, I like to pet nice things. Once, at a fair, I seen some of them long-haired rabbits, and they was nice, you bet. Sometimes I even pet mice, but not when I couldn't get nothing better. Curly's wife moved away from him a little. I think you're nuts, she said. No, I ain't, Lenny explained earnestly. George says I ain't. I like to pet nice things with my fingers, soft things. She was a little bit reassured. Well, who don't? She said. Everybody likes that. I like to feel silk and velvet. Do you like to feel velvet? Lenny chuckled with pleasure. Oh, you bet, by God, he cried happily. And I had some, too. A lady gave me some, and that lady was, well, my own Aunt Clara. She give it right to me, about this big a piece. I wish I had that velvet right now. A frown came over his face. But I lost it, he said. I ain't seen it for a long time. Curly's wife laughed at him. You're nuts, she said. But you're kind of a nice fella, just like a big baby. but a person can see kind of what you mean. Well, when I'm doing my hair sometimes, I just sit and stroke it because it's so soft. To show how she did it, she ran her fingers over the top of her head. Some people got kind of coarse hair, she said complacently. Take Curly. His hair is just like wire, but mine is soft and fine because I brush it a lot. That makes it fine. Here, feel right here. She took Lenny's hand and put it on her head. Feel right around there. See how soft it is? Lenny's big fingers fell to stroking her hair. Well, don't you muss it up, she said. Lenny said, Oh, that's nice, and he stroked it harder. Oh, that's nice. Well, look out now, you'll muss it. And then she cried angrily, You stop it now, you'll mess it all up. She jerked her head sideways, and Lenny's fingers closed on her hair and hung on. Let go, she cried. You let go. So that's the end of where we're going for the part 1 discussion questions, because the next part about what happens between Lenny and Curly's wife is your close reading. I don't read that to you. I want you to read that yourself and sort of discover what happens yourself. And there's a few questions to go along with it, so please answer those questions. This DQ should now be done, so you can finish it up and turn it in. Make sure that you have a quote for 1 and a quote for 3. In terms of your page numbers, if you just kind of move your mouse, you can see the page numbers. You can either copy it right from this video if you can see it clear enough, or there is the PDF in the classroom and you can open it up and copy paste. All right, but make sure you have page numbers. And the PDF page numbers are right here for this section.